Hey everybody, and welcome to the Wave Raceway build showcase. This is a fun one to build, and I'm super excited to show you guys how I built this racetrack. Lots of intricate steps to get into, but let's go and start from the very beginning. And it all starts out with a 6x4 piece of plywood here, where I am going to go ahead and get myself started here. This track I made in season number 4 of the Miscraft Cup series. It had a bridge and a hill and everything, and I really wanted to make sure that that was the main focus of this build here. I really use leftover styrofoam to kind of shape up my hills here. As you can see, I use my X-Acto knife here to kind of carve it out, really. It's a lot easier to use a hot wire cutting tool, but mine was broken at the time of filming this, and so I just went ahead and used the next best thing, which was my X-Acto knife. I glued everything down, had the styrofoam melt to itself and each other and to the board, and it held pretty sturdy here. It took a while definitely to carve out the little mountain here, but nonetheless, it certainly was effective. The really cool thing about my knife here is that it can bend and contort to the ways I want it to with whatever pressure I give it, so that allowed me to kind of get better curvature into the hill there. Started carving out some of the boxier areas here. This is the part that was going to go into the bridge here. Just kind of putting everything together really early on here, just trying to get a base shape of what everything's going to look like. Now, I've built a lot of racetracks in my time as a stop-motion creator for NASCAR, and one of the most fun things I think that I've done so far is make banking for the racetracks. And this may not be banking, but it is something very similar in elevation, and it was still quite a challenge to do. As you can see, I'm sanding down the styrofoam here before I put on what is going to seal the track in a moment. But before I do seal the track with sheetrock mud, I went ahead and made a wooden bridge out of popsicle sticks here. Hot glued them down and together to create that little bridge. I really wanted to go with sort of a wooden-esque kind of build here, and I thought about leaving the bridge wooden and having a red brick all the way around the side there for this, but it didn't really work out like that in the end. But once everything got secure and kind of shaped up for the track shape, I went ahead and put down some sheetrock mud to make the track surface on top of the styrofoam, because in reality you really don't want to have the car sitting on top of a very squishy piece of foam or whatever, and the painting wouldn't even look as smooth as an asphalt would. So I went ahead and used this. I use this trick for pretty much all of my tracks that use banking. And so after I got done putting all the sheetrock mud down, I did sand down the sheetrock mud and paint the track once it dried. Next up, the step after everything was done with that, was to put down the curbs. Getting everything down before you really get the paint going, I think, is the most important thing here. Obviously I did paint the asphalt onto the track, but that is just a base, and I can always touch that up later if I absolutely need to. And I started using clay to create some of my curbs here. I did it with Miscraft Racing Complex, and I also did it with the Charlotte Roval when I did that track. And cutting everything down to shape with some of my clay tools here, kind of refining how everything looks here before we get into the painting, and very nice sharp edges there. I followed the same technique for all of the other curbs that I used around the track, and I think that the curved curbs were probably the more difficult of the ones to put down and secure to the board itself, because you can see here, nice straight edge, straight run down there through with the clay carving tool there. Putting some indentations into the clay there as well also helped kind of give that curve feeling as well. And once everything was done with the shaping up, I went ahead and started painting. I did choose to do a light blue and sea green kind of color here for the curbs. You don't really see this combination much when it comes to curbs on our racetracks. It's usually white and red, or very rarely some other small color that typically has white in it, right? So I wanted to try to do something that had two different colors here. And, I think it worked out really well with the Wave Raceway sort of thing, kind of getting that oceany sort of feel there. I think it worked out pretty well. So after getting all the painting and everything done for the flat portions of the racetrack, I went ahead and started painting the asphalt that went up Maverick Hill and over top of the bridge. You can see all that sheetrock mud dried white. when it applied on it was kind of a lightish gray color, and it dried white. I sanded it all down and started painting it on. And I mixed in some greens, beiges, and oranges to get myself this kind of dark color there for the grass, and then went back over it with some green. And here we are painting the bricks and the wooden stakes there that will hold up the bridge. I painted everything a nice brown. That was pretty much straight out of the bottle. And then we got ourselves a little bit more beige going on in here, a little bit lighter browns there. And once I finished off the brickwork there at the bridge, I started putting down the walls on the racetrack. And this is really the point of the build where you realize you're getting pretty close to the end, right? So when you put up the walls, you're like, all right, everything's getting ready to come together. We're just about ready to have a fully functional racetrack. And yeah, that's how it felt right here. I've always used hot glue here to kind of put down the walls here. And the walls are made out of a foam core, like poster board sort of thing, a foam poster board. And after we got done putting up the walls, I know it was moving a little quick here, but we put down the walls, and now I've got this little sandy roll of paper, sandy sheet. I don't really know what to call it, but there's this craft sheet that has a really sandy texture to it that I was able to find. It's almost like the grass sheets that you can kind of roll out and cut to whatever shape you want. And once I did cut it out with the X-Acto knife there, I went ahead and hot glued that down and put on a couple other sections around the sand trap area as well. I finished that up, put the walls up over top of the bridge, and everything started to come together just a little bit more. And here is that grass sheet that I was talking about. I only really used this section for grass, for the grass sheet, and a little bit there going on a pit road. And for some of the areas that needed a little bit of a touch-up with the asphalt here, I went ahead and mixed together some blacks and grays to kind of get that refined in there. And I also tidied up the white lines there. You can see there on the left side of the screen here. Did that there. Nice and smooth with a brush there, allowing me to get some pretty straight edges on most of these areas of the track. And then after that, it was on to paint the yellow for the Swedish Fish sponsor spot. Down there in the Fisherman's Hook, that was what the chicane here was called. And a very nice flat yellow there, able to put on some sponsorship logos, which is what this is right here, putting on a second layer of that foam wall that'll allow me to put on some sponsor barriers there. And then for some tire barriers, I simply just cut out some rectangular prisms of some styrofoam, and then I wrapped around some sticky foam sheets there onto the side. And secure it on top the sponsor boards, put on some catch fencing in that area, put some more sponsor boards in the back side. And this sand trap here, honestly, one of my favorite parts of the entire racetrack, just because of how detailed I feel like that this is the most detail I've put into any section of a racetrack I've made before. And of course, for those tire barriers, you got to paint them black, make them look like tire barriers. And in a moment, I will put on some sponsorship logos on the front of those. But before we get there, we got to put on the catch fencing in a very important spot of the racetrack, of the bridge. You don't want any cars flying over. And once we got the catch fence on there, it was time to start putting logos onto the racetrack. And this is where the fun begins. This is where everything kind of starts to come together, starting with the Wave logo. And then I put some logos onto a garage I made out of a DIECAST 124 box. Put down the start finish line here, put down some other wall logos and stuff as well. I just print all this stuff out onto a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and then cut it all out. And to make sure, that if you have any logos that are going on any surfaces that have any sort of color behind them where white would look kind of off, I would always try to color match that background if you can. See there with some of the logos I put onto the racetrack, put a gray background on it. And then here we've got the the board logos here for Swedish Fish in the Swedish Fish area of the racetrack. I thought the sponsorship fit pretty well there, especially with it being a Wave kind of, sea-related sort of racetrack here. Putting down some Toyota logos here. Again, this all just starts to bring it all together here. You can see the race cars on the track, and it all just starting to look so nice, man. I love the way that this track came together. Long project, and these little details here are really what make it pop. Put on the Swedish Fish logo here, and the last thing that I did to build this racetrack was paint down the choose cone here. You use some paint markers here with orange and then some black as the outline, and then we added some foliage and stuff like that I don't think I got in recording, otherwise I couldn't find it. But yeah, with all that out of the way and the choose cone pretty much done, the track itself is also done and ready to go racing. The Wave Raceway is a 2.1-mile racetrack in San Diego, California that has only hosted NASCAR Miscraft Cup Series stop-motion races, and this track is super fun. It's got 9 turns to it on the main course configuration, and you're looking there at Maverick Hill. It takes us all the way up and over, and there's another look down at the racetrack level. See here a lot of the details here into this racetrack here. We've got a ton of fantastic little things that I've never really built before, like brickwork and stuff there. Obviously the hill and the bridge, which are very unique to a NASCAR racetrack. Some things that were not in this video here that I didn't showcase were just putting down some campers and trees and other foliage of the sorts as well here. And you might have seen a little bit of a log cabin there on the side of a couple of the video frames here. But that was built from hand, off video, just kind of as a fun little project. That is the Honey Bee Hideout, and is a little cafe that will be hiding out in the Miscraft Cup Series. This track really challenged me to build in a new way that I never really had before. This took longer than pretty much any other track build did, but it was certainly more fun and more challenging to do. I found myself learning new things about how to make racetracks. This included the ways that I made curbs, and even made my own garage as well out of some everyday NASCAR thing. But that is it here. Thank you all for watching so much for this video. I know a lot of you love the race, and if you haven't seen it yet, then what are you doing? Go check out the race before you get spoiled by something else. I'll be sure to have more track builds in the future, but until then, I'll see you guys next time.